back. Oh, hold on. In 3, 2, 1. We're back with another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast, and we are back with the second half of our NFL Draft Combine Overreaction mock draft. What we're hearing, what we saw at the NFL Combine, we are overreacting to it. And one of those overreactions, if you guys listened to 1 through 16, if you haven't, you should go and do that. But spoiler alert, real quick, Shedeur Sanders is not in those first 16 picks. Now, when it comes down to it, we both believe he will end up being a top 10 pick in April. We believe that he deserves to be a top 10 pick in April. But the whispers around him, surrounding him, were that he was as, I guess we can say, brash as we all kind of expected him to be. And so for me personally, this kind of comes down to Xavier Worthy ran a 4.2. Of course he did. We can see that on tape. Don't count it as double. Listen, we know that Shedeur Sanders is going to get in interviews and he's going to call out his offensive line. He's going to hold people accountable. Is he going to do it with tact, with grace? No, he's a Sanders. Have you ever seen Dion speak ever about anything? I mean, Shiloh isn't even his second favorite son. Shedeur might not be his first. Travis might be number one. If you asked him, Travis is probably his favorite. And that is just what we have to understand about this situation is you don't have to count this twice. You shouldn't count this twice. Shedeur is who he is. It will work in some locker rooms. It will not work in others. But, personally, I wish that there was a little bit more tact with it. But I don't find anything wrong with holding a terrible offensive line accountable. That's just kind of how I feel about that.
I keep it behind closed doors, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would much rather it be kept behind closed doors. But when you're asked questions and you're the franchise quarterback, he's not going to shy away from answers because he's a Sanders. But going over the first 16 picks, we will do that. I want to ask first, Corey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I am good. I'm feeling a lot better rested after sleeping in my own bed for the first time in a week. So that felt good to be back. A little Airbnb story. We booked an Airbnb that was supposed to be for 3 people, and I was the third of the 3 people to arrive. And booking an Airbnb for 3 people meant to this host that it's a 2-bedroom and a couch. So I slept on a couch all week, which was really lovely. But I'm good to be back. I'm well rested, so I'm ready to dive in. Let's talk about these first 16 picks a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll just go through and do our own picks. Remember, if you guys didn't listen in, we drafted the draft picks. So for the teams. So we did not snake it. We didn't go back and forth. We went through, we decided who we wanted to choose, who we wanted to pick for. And that's the way that we did it. I started off with Tennessee, and I selected Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Who was number 2, Corey?
Yeah, begrudgingly, I selected Cam Ward to the Cleveland Browns. I tried so hard to avoid picking for the Browns in this, but I still ended up picking for the Browns, and I selected Cam Ward with the second overall pick.
At 3, the New York Giants selected Travis Hunter, cornerback wide receiver from Colorado. And at number 4, New England got a gift with Abdul Carter's stress fracture in his foot and took arguably the best player in the class with the 4th pick at a position of dire need.
Stress reaction. I don't really know what the difference is between a stress fracture and a stress reaction.
Stress reaction. Okay, that's the first time I've heard that. So for everybody that's out there, there are a ton of different weird foot injuries. People talk about the Jones fracture a lot. Depending on what the specific stress fracture is, it can either be like a 4 to 6 month thing or like a 12+ month thing, depending on what it is. And I don't know what his specific injury is. What I will say, and what I said when we went through the picks originally, New England can't believe that they're going to compete in the AFC East with Buffalo anyways. So why not build for the future and potentially have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL coming in year two fresh after not playing much as a rookie or just kind of slowly getting his feet wet.
Yep. So I had the next two picks, Jacksonville, Vegas, and I went Will Campbell to Jacksonville, Ashton Genty to the Raiders.
Armand Membao, the offensive tackle from Missouri, is a New York Jet, and man, I'm really loving that offensive line.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful thing. Who knows who's playing quarterback? But actually, the rumor is that they really want Justin Fields, so we'll see how that plays out. But yeah. Carolina at 8, I took Tyler Warren to help Bryce Young just get another playmaker, predominantly to use in space, create mismatches, take a little pressure off of his tiny little shoulders.
And you can do a little fun 12 personnel stuff because they do also have Jatavian Sanders. I'm hoping that this selection doesn't happen, so Sanders is inserted because I have him on my dynasty team. Teteroa McMillan is the next pick. I have no clue how he has 31-inch arms. Anatomically, it makes absolutely zero sense, but he is a New Orleans Saint. Mason Graham is a Chicago Bear, the defensive tackle from Michigan. The San Francisco 49ers selected Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle, Texas. Start him out at right tackle, start him out at left guard. Doesn't matter. He will end up being their left tackle in the future. And then the Dallas Cowboys select CeeDee Lamb's Robin at a pick higher than they selected CeeDee Lamb with the 4.29 running Matthew Golden out of the University of Texas. One of the NFL Draft Combine's greatest mysteries because neither of us believed he was anywhere close to a 4.3 athlete, let alone a sub 4.3 athlete. So good for Matthew Golden.
I love it. Yeah, that was bonkers, just nuts. 13 to Miami. I selected Josh Simmons as Membao is off the board here, and I think they need an athletic guy at left tackle with Teron Armstead also contemplating retirement.
Will Johnson still being on the board at 14 is highway robbery for the Indianapolis Colts, who desperately need cornerback help.
Yep, love it. 15, hottest player in Indianapolis. Talked about player in Indianapolis. Atlanta Falcons take Jahad Campbell. He's not getting out of the top 20. I've written about that. I am very confident that Jahad Campbell is going top 20.
Yeah, and I mean, never mind. I'm going to stay away from that conversation. I was going to say, you were up close and personal. Who is the best looking dude that you saw at the NFL Combine? Because you were talking about the hottest. But we don't have to get into that. We're fluid. The Arizona Cardinals here with the 16th pick. Luther Burden III. We're going to help out the middle of the field. We're going to help out Trey McBride. We're going to help out their pint-sized quarterback by getting somebody who can take the ball behind the line of scrimmage and make plays with it. Let's go.
I love it. Get Ben as Jerry. You said pint-sized. I can.
Ooh, Ben and Jerry.
Yeah.
Very controversial these days because they're loud on social media. Anyways, we're not going to get into that. Let's get into
I got the next 3 picks here. Yeah, you had those. Yeah, you had that streak of 4 in a row. And now
4, yeah.
I've got to run a little 3 here. And my next 2 are back-to-back safeties. So again, Cincinnati has 0 talent in their secondary outside of potentially Cam Taylor-Britt might play a little bit. Dax Hill just hasn't worked out at all. They brought in Al Golden, and watch what Xavier Watts can do with Al Golden on the back end of that defense. And now get them a guy who's actually an athlete, who I also think is just as instinctive. He didn't have the greatest year.
Hey, chill.
But he's been doing it since he was 18 years old. Malachi Starks to the Bengals right here. I think I really love this fit. 18, Seattle Seahawks. One of my favorite fits in this class. Mike McDonald and Nick Imawari. Nick Imawari, a 10 out of 10 RAS athlete as well. Nick Imawari can play in the slot. He can play in the box. He can play over the top. He could probably stick him out on the outside on an island. He could press man somebody too if you really wanted him to.
But put him on the edge.
Put him on the edge.
What he's got.
But this is Mike McDonald's Kyle Hamilton in Seattle here. So Nick Imawari to the Seahawks.
You guys know I got to bring this up. I told y'all. I told y'all. I want to bring this up because Jeremy Chin is the other kind of 10-0 guy. Very similar in height, 6'03", 1 to 6'03", 220 to 221. They both did 20 on the bench press. and that's just doing side quests at that point.
Mhm.
Like, you just know that you're a freak, and they both have 32 plus inch arms. So, I mean, impressive bench pressing for them. The 438 from Nicky Minori is crazy. The 43-inch vert is insane.
Unreal.
For somebody his size at 200, he ended up coming in at 220 pounds, not 230. But I mean, we're talking about a guy, and it was brought up in my Discord, like, oh, well, he didn't do the agility drills. I feel like very few players these days actually go through and do the agility drills at the combine. And it might just be because nobody has been doing well in the agility drills at the combine. Um,
Yeah.
and so for me, this is the guy. I don't care. He is not stiff at 220 pounds.
Not
This
at
is
all.
a fluid mover. Somebody who, in my notes, I talked about can turn and burn with guys. And then you add on his incredible intelligence. We are talking about, in my opinion, I mean, a better athlete than Kyle Hamilton. And Hamilton might have been a little bit more instinctual. But there is absolutely no reason for him to fall outside of the 18th pick in the draft. Just like there was absolutely no reason the Baltimore Ravens should have ever had a chance to draft Kyle Hamilton. Period. End of story. If you don't like Nicky Minori, that's fine. I think that you should probably spend some more time learning about split field safety.
Love it.
And you guys know I don't do this. You guys know I don't do the I'm better than you thing, or I know more than you. But I am so confident that Nicky Minori is an absolute freaking stud.
I love it. I love your little soapbox. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. The last of my run of three here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19. Jalen Walker as a linebacker, projecting him here. Again, you can walk him down into some Sam stuff. You're going to have to teach him how to backpedal. But Levante David is a free agent. KJ Britt, JJ Russell, Servassier Dennis are your linebackers in Tampa right now. If you don't think that's an issue and one to address very, very early, okay. And again, Tampa drafts notoriously high character guys, early. And so this just fits. Jalen Walker, Tampa Bay.
It's a boring pick at number 20 for Denver, but I feel like it's the right pick. You're either getting Ashton Jeanty, Tyler Warren, or Colson Loveland. If none of those guys are on the board, I have no clue where to go with Denver
Like
whatsoever.
Caleb Johnson, maybe?
Yeah, it's really interesting to me.
Elijah Arroyo? I would think that's way too early for Arroyo, but
yeah. But anyways, yeah, Colson Loveland, get Bo Nix a little weapon here.
Love it. His little Jimmy Graham action for Sean Payton. 20. I have 21 and 22 back to back here. Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. I'm going to go with Derek Harmon. Buzz out of Pittsburgh at the draft is they're looking to address their interior defensive line, and they prefer a player along the skill set of a Cam Hayward. That to me leans Harmon over Grant, over a guy like Kenneth Grant, over a guy like Tyreek Williams. So I'm going to send Derek Harmon to the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 21st overall pick. 22nd, Los Angeles Chargers. This one feels relatively easy as well, just knowing who the head coach is, knowing they love to run a lot of gap power. And I think that's what separates this back between him and Caleb Johnson, even if I have Caleb Johnson graded as a higher back, where I just think Caleb Johnson is so smooth on an inside-outside zone. And compared to Omarion Hampton, who will run through your face. That's a Jim Harbaugh style of running back. I know J.K. Dobbins had a good year, but he still was not fully healthy last year. And that's not something you can bank on. They could upgrade the interior of their offensive line here and take a guard. But again, I think that at the end of the day, Jim Harbaugh is going to want to continue to run the football. So go get an explosive, physical dude in Omarion Hampton.
Couldn't agree more. It's not really a pick that I had thought about much, but when I saw it, I really enjoyed seeing that with my eyeballs. The Green Bay Packers at number 23, Mykel Williams. I think this is where the slide ends. He has all the measurables, and we've seen them go with somebody like Rashawn Gary, who was a very raw pass rusher, and they did a very good job developing him into a very good player. I think Michael Williams has the length and just like natural base, the natural sturdiness that I saw from him on the interior. There's nothing really from a pass rush plan standpoint. He's pretty decently stiff as well. He was obviously coming off of an injury this year, but I just think that give him a little bit of time. He's somebody who can be a good run defender immediately and can end up being a run through your chest type of pass rusher at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Worries me a little bit because that's also what Lucas Van Ness was: stiff as a board, good run defender, high floor, and they haven't really been able to get up. But I mean, Mike has,
yeah, I think
an alien build wise. Yeah,
and more explosive than
more
Lucas Van Ness was.
Yeah. All right, Minnesota 24. This is a little bit of an overreaction here as well, but I do think I like the fit of playing a little bit predominantly shade 3, where his transitional burst could be on full display, and that's Maxwell Hairston, who ran a 4.3 flat 40-yard dash at the combine as well. And Hairston's been a player all year that I've heard. I'm like, this is a back end of the first round guy, a guy that could sneak into the back end of the first round. I don't see that high on tape, but again, the corner class is kind of like bottomed out in my opinion. I don't know if you feel like that. Like, we really came in high on the corner class.
I felt that since Morrison and Revel got hurt.
Yeah, and it just hasn't lived up to what the expectation of the corner class was. So a guy like Maxwell Hairston is going to raise because, again, teams are running a lot of 11 to 12 personnel. You want safeties and corners on the football field. So, and again, they had a good breakout from Byron Murphy, but again, Stephon Gilmore's aging. They need to get younger in that room. So I'm going to go with Maxwell Hairston to the Vikings.
You guys know I love the Tyler Booker to Houston pick, but he didn't test very well. And Donovan Jackson's playoff run was incredible at left tackle. We've seen Houston have a ton of injuries on the offensive line, and you have one of the best left tackles in the NFL. If he goes down and you need a left tackle to step in, Donovan Jackson might be that guy in Houston for them after starting at left guard. And I mean, left guard for the Houston Texans might be the most concerning need in the entire NFL right now. So for me, this is a really easy pick. I do really enjoy Tyler Booker. I love the phone booth player that he is. But Donovan Jackson, if you can teach him to play within himself a little bit more when you do get him on the move, he is a very fluid athlete. He's got the length. And I think he's a fantastic pass protector, and you need to protect your greatest asset, which is CJ Stroud.
Yes. Let's make it back-to-back Buckeyes here. I would honestly have considered Donovan Jackson to the Rams as a left tackle, but they just re-signed Alaric Jackson. Rob Havenstein said he's coming back for another year, or the Rams said they're bringing Havenstein back for another year. So they might punt on tackle, even though I think drafting a year ahead is a good idea, especially with kind of swing players like Donovan Jackson as well. But it's been pretty out there that they're trading Cooper Kupp. They told Cooper Kupp that he was getting traded. Cooper Kupp told everybody that they told him he was getting traded. Cooper Kupp is getting traded. So you need, and I know Puka Nacua can fill that role, but him and Nacua worked really well together. So why not let Nacua continue to do what he's doing and find somebody to fill Cooper Kupp's role? And why can't that player be the ultra smooth Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State here to take over that Cooper Kupp role? Which is like almost a meme at this point. Everybody says like, oh, he can play the Cooper Kupp role. Like, that's just a buzzword, but this is legitimately the case here. Let Egbuka play the Cooper Kupp role and keep that passing attack going.
There is a guy in this class who can play the Cooper Kupp role, but he should be taken on late on day 2 or early on day 3. The Baltimore Ravens. This is where the slide stops for Nick Scorton, who came in under 260.
It didn't test. That was disappointing.
It's interesting. He didn't test. He was supposed to go to the Senior Bowl. He didn't do that. A little bit of an interesting season for him, a little bit of an interesting offseason so far for him, but he feels like a Baltimore Ravens defensive end, outside linebacker type. Kind of as Wuzarike. or is it Ezraku?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
Donovan
come
E.
back to that.
Yeah. Donovan E from Boston College also feels like a Baltimore Raven, but I personally prefer Scorton at Texas A&M over him, and so I'm just going with my own gut here.
I love it. And again, he just feels like a Raven. The Ravens will gladly take all of the people that you get passed up on, like that tend to get passed down the board. And then they become really good players. 28 to the Detroit Lions. So this is going to be really early for a player, and I don't think he's going to go first round. But I'm going to take Marcus Bowe, the Purdue offensive lineman, to the Lions here at 28 overall, and I think it's because there's just so much influx along the Detroit offensive line. Like Frank Ragnow is considering retirement every year. Marcus Bowe can play center. Graham Glasnow is replaceable. He can play left guard. Kevin Zeitler is old, and so like there are so many different things you could do with Marcus Bowe, and then he could also play swing tackle for you if a tackle goes down, because he started the last 2 years at right tackle. I do quite kind of question the anchor at tackle, how that might translate to guard. Again, we've been pretty vocal that we think that center is his best fit. And again, I've heard some stuff that maybe Bo's personality is rubbing some teams the wrong way, that he's coming across a little strong, a little hot-headed. But if I think there's a locker room where that works, it might be with Dan Campbell as well, to really hone that in and keep that on the football field. So I love the fit from a personality, locker room, and needs perspective from the Lions, even if I think it's probably, I mean, we both think Marcus Bo's a top 50 player. So, I mean, 28 to 50 isn't a huge range on a board grade wise. So it's really not that big of a reach, but it is a little bit of a reach here for Marcus Bowe to the Lions at 28.
At number 29, I think there's kind of two directions that Washington can go. They can go offensive tackle. They can go defensive back. They just traded for Deebo Samuel, which good for them. Good for getting a manufactured touch weapon for Jaden Daniels, who loves to make himself a punching bag if any situation arises. But I'm going to go defense here because Jahdae Barron is the type of versatile defensive back that Dan Quinn will absolutely salivate over. Mike Sanderson, little guy, little guy, played in the slot at Michigan, played outside for Washington, can do a little bit of everything. I thought Jahdae Barron would be a safety slot guy at the NFL level. Running what he ran, maybe I was wrong. Maybe he can play on the outside. But Noah Igbenogany is not very good, and he is a free agent. Jeremy Chin, their safety, is a free agent. Benjamin St. Just doesn't have the juice. He's a free agent.
Marcus Lattimore probably getting cut.
Yeah. Bring Jahdae Barron in and let him be the dude in that secondary, along with the tiny but very, very fierce Mike Sanderson.
Yeah. I would say Barron's probably the player that I heard the second most about in Indianapolis. And it's just everybody loves him. Everybody loves Jahdae Barron, where he needs to be penned into first rounds, I think, because he's going to go top 32. And some people view him as an apex. Some people view him as a strict outside corner. But it doesn't matter where people view him. They view him as a high character player and a guy who's going to play very quality snaps for you very early. So he's going to get penned in the first rounds. So he goes first round here. Buffalo at 30. I think Buffalo is one of the harder teams to draft for this year, man. Just where they're picking in the back of the board. Yeah, and then, they could go interior defensive line, and Kenneth Grant's on the board. But they could go edge rusher. But we don't love any of the edge rushers on the board. I don't love any of the edge rushers on the board right now, including, and there are two that are not going to be in our first round because of off the field issues, and James Pierce and Mike Green in this mock draft.
Allegedly.
Sure. Yes. I struggle to think that they might not go corner here in this case, especially with a guy like Savon Revel still on the board. They've gotten some really good reps out of late round players. Christian Benford, some pretty highly instinctual players who aren't athletes but are high IQ players, fit the scheme and know how to. But I do think you can transcend that defense even a little bit more with a player with some range, with some transitional burst, with some elite change ability, like change of direction ability, and has shown the ability to get his hands on the football. I know Revel's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. I know he's coming off an ACL injury. He's good, man, and I think he fits what Buffalo might be looking for here at the back end. And we're talking back end of the first round too. So 31, Kansas City Chiefs. One of the easier projections. I say that up front, but they could throw a curveball. They need a left tackle in the worst possible way. They need a left tackle. Josh Connerly is on the board, an elite athlete, has a frame to continue to build out once he gets into an NFL building. But I do kind of question, like, you were in probably a top 3 facility in college football and you weren't really able to fill it out in 3 years. So some question marks there that I might have personally. But elite athlete. Another frustrating thing about Connerly, all of his best games are against his best opponents, and all of his worst games are against, like, playing down to competition, like Idaho, Purdue, Fresno State. It's like, why are these the games that are your worst tape? But the Big Ten championship game against Penn State, like the Ohio State game, like games, even that second Ohio State game, I thought he played pretty well. Like, what's happening here? Why is the switch not always on? But I think the talent's too great there. Former 5-star, true junior, heck of an athlete. Josh Connerly to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And that brings us to number 32. And I posed this question when I got to number 32. It was, which character guy is Philadelphia going to turn into a stud? And I think it's Walter Nolan. And listen, there's some character stuff with, allegedly, with Nolan and with Pierce, and certainly with Green, from what we've heard. Nolan's stuff allegedly seems more to be on he's a knucklehead type of deal. Like, is he going to show up to a meeting? It's stuff like that. This is the former, I think, top recruit in the nation, a freak athlete, like unbelievably.
He was part of that ridiculous Texas A&M class. Yeah.
Yes, unbelievably explosive. Flamed out at Texas A&M. Where do you go if you flame out at an SEC school? You go to the SEC school that just takes transfers. And so you're looking at a guy who is going to immediately be a Milton Williams level of slasher with zero actual, like, responsibility on a defensive front that has 2 Georgia dudes who are tops. 3 Georgia dudes, if you count Nolan Smith, who kind of came on this year. They could use an edge guy, but they kind of have a rotation of guys that they can work in there. That defensive line is outstanding. That roster is unbelievable. And Williams is really one of the only guys they're losing this offseason that really, really matters. And so replacing him with a really high upside slasher at 3 tech, 4-eye, whatever you want to play him as, is a good fit for Philadelphia here.
Well, that rounds it out. That rounds that out. A very Philadelphia pick at the end as well. So recapping picks 17 through 32. The Bengals grab Malachi Starks. The Seahawks grab Nick Emmanwori. Buccaneers grab Jalen Walker. Broncos get Colson Loveland. Steelers get Derek Harmon. Chargers get Omarion Hampton. Packers get Mykel Williams. Minnesota Vikings get Maxwell Hairston. The Houston Texans get Donovan Jackson. Los Angeles Rams get Emeka Egbuka. Ravens take Nick Scorton, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. The Lions go Marcus Bowe, versatile offensive lineman. The Commanders take defensive back Jahdae Barron. Buffalo takes Siobhan Revel. Kansas City takes Josh Connerly to upgrade their offensive line, and the Eagles round it out with defensive tackle Walter Nolan. All right, Dalton. That's an overreaction mock draft if I've ever seen one. Broke it up into 2 parts. Again, if you missed the first part, go back and listen to it, because this probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you don't. Do you have anything to add?
Still no Shedeur Sanders in the entire first round. Yeah. We understand that is not going to happen in April, and it shouldn't happen in April. But it is I think a distinct possibility that he is around much longer than we think he probably should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I probably one of those teams sitting in the front end of round 2, trying to come up. I mean, like the Vikings have no draft picks. The Rams probably could do a trade back and start stack because they're getting kind of old. Some teams like that could find some nice little assets to add. So yeah, I think somebody's probably coming up for him if he doesn't go top 10. Who knows? Some team in the top 10 still might love him because teams either love or hate him. Like we knew that was going to be the case. So being brash, being like not really caring what other teams think of him, I think you also kind of want that in your quarterback. I think a little bit. So we'll see what happens. I know that I'm one of the very few Shador Sanders QB1 truthers. It's the Arrested Development meme of there's dozens of us left, but I'll fight the good fight, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we'll adjust later. But yeah, that's all I've got. Until next time, Dalton. This has been an episode of the Daft on Draft podcast.
Welcome